Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Real History. I am your host, Jared Frederick, and for this episode we are also joined by...
Andrew Collins.
Our trusty world's best producer, correct? Yes.
Yeah.
In this episode, we have something very special lined up in which Andy is going to be invoking some of his expertise to help tell a really good story. History is full of rivalries, and perhaps one of the most celebrated of them in cinema is that of Ford versus Ferrari. And accordingly, we are going to be taking a look at that film in this installment. Andy, what do you like about this film?
It's a no holds barred, just action packed, guys being guys. it's cars and rock and roll music. I mean,
what's not to like? Also, check out our video of Dazed and Confused, where we analyze a whole lot of those similar themes. So let's go ahead and get started and see how this movie matches up with the historical record as well as the mechanical one. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at Ford versus Ferrari.
Carroll did not actually get set on fire.
It's a hell of a good opening there to set the stage.
This is as serious as it gets. In my opinion, you're lucky to be sitting here today.
Huh. Well, I feel real lucky. Luckiest guy on earth.
It's like he's invoking his Matthew McConaughey impression a little bit.
Now it's Ron Trips in the Ferrari, coming into the corkscrew. He's braking late.
When we see Miles' son playing with the toy race car, my dad had one just like that, and at my grandmother's house we would, get it out like on Thanksgiving Day or something to resurrect it. But not to sound cliche, there was a definite need for speed, especially among young people, baby boomers who were coming of age here in the post-World War II era. There was an embracing of the future, I think, in a way that there hadn't been before. You even get a sense of this in the cars, coinciding with the space race, because you have the fins on the back of the cars to give it that aerodynamic look. You had kids who were really, really into cars, and it was prevalent everywhere. Looks like me driving a clutch.
Well, except he actually kept going.
Oh, yeah.
What type of girl are you?
Type of girl who likes the smell of wet gasoline, burnt rubber.
Oh, what are you, some kind of a deviant?
It's not often he gets to play a British person.
It's still not quite his accent, though.
No, it's what they describe as Brummy.
Brummy, yeah. So here we see the great John Bernthal playing Lee Iacocca. What in your mind makes Iacocca such an iconic pioneer in the automotive industry?
He definitely had a great vision, and over the course of his career he worked for GM, Ford, Chrysler. You just see all these icons following him everywhere he goes.
That's the sound of the Ford Motor Company out of business.
So this is Henry Ford II. He is the son of Edsel Ford, the eldest grandson of Henry Ford, who started the company. This is a great scene. This guy has many great scenes in this movie, but the likelihood of him going down to the factory for himself to deliver this speech, I'd say it's a bit unlikely.
65 years and 47 million automobiles later, what shall be his legacy? Getting it in the tailpipe from a Chevy Impala.
True to form, a lot of Americans thought that Ford was becoming a second-rate corporation by this point because it was seemingly unable to compete in the way that it once could against the likes of GM and Chrysler. Now you had foreign import cars coming in as well. The Edsel had just flopped in a very horrible way. And so there was this notion of descent. Are we going to be able to claw our way out of it? So I think the sort of desperation Henry Ford II here speaks to isn't exaggerated in the broad scheme of things.
Man comes to my office with an idea, that man keeps his job. Rest of you second-best losers, stay home.
Part of me thinks that's pretty terrible, and the other half of me says, I would love to work for a company like that.
He was known to be egotistical at times, as was his competitor, Ferrari. So they are two perfect entities to be butting heads with one another here as we get into the mid-1960s.
And last I checked, the professionals all have a car. You cannot win the SCCA without one. If you're not winning, you are losing.
Don't make me lamp this at your head.
Did you bring your son all the way out here to watch you get disqualified, or just act like a jackass?
Have you ever thrown a wrench at somebody?
No, and neither did Ken Miles.
Bloody hell! To drive, you pillock!
What do you think has changed in the culture of race car driving over the past 60 years? Is there still that sort of renegade spirit, or is it a lot more tempered now, given the developments in technology?
I know that in sports such as NASCAR and F1, that it's not following the rules, it's not getting caught breaking them.
So it's kind of like any other sport.
Yeah.
No use for steroids, though.
Come on!
So what car is he using here to coast to victory?
Appropriately enough, he's in a Shelby Cobra, which is it's a British-produced car that Shelby found responded very well to a Ford V8 engine.
But it had its windshield.
Yes. I will own one someday.
Only if our channel grows. That was his wife.
Hi, Tracy. She's pretty awesome.
A couple of years ago, you said we'd a nest egg.
If Mrs. Miles had a few big stones out in the countryside, it would have allowed her to time travel and go back and change things.
I think she did that about 10 years before this takes place, didn't she?
Yeah, I think so.
James Bond does not drive a Ford, sir.
That's because he's a degenerate.
I think there's like this perfect representational conflict here that plays out among the generations. You have the older brand of leadership and you have the younger one. Those who are hip and have a good sense on this really robust culture that's about to bust through the front door in the 1960s. And then you have the more traditional reserved people who want to stay the course, make a product that is appealing to your average domestic nuclear family. And they're butting heads in the very same way that car companies themselves are butting heads in the 1960s. So I love this scene. It's also kind of reminiscent of something from Mad Men as well.
Ferrari's bankrupt. Enzo spent every lira he's got chasing perfection. You know something? He got there. But now he's broke.
Ferrari was producing only enough cars for the street to underride his primary goal, and that was to put the fastest, most aerodynamic cars out on the speedway. But as we get a sense of here, that strategy has its shortcomings, and that's where Lee Iacocca sees an opportunity.
And in fact, it's proven that they make excellent cars because Fiat was paying them every year, subsidizing them, just to prop up the name of Italian sports cars.
Relax, man. You gotta understand, it's just like the mafia showing up here by the Statue of Liberty.
I believe this meeting did occur, but Lee Iacocca was not present.
No,
someone lower in the chain was delegated to do this because they didn't want that sort of profile being raised.
Mm-hmm. This was kind of embarrassing for Ferrari.
Everything hand-built.
Iacocca later penned a highly successful memoir. I think it was one of the most successful memoirs of the second half of the 20th century because in it he outlined this blueprint as to what a professional needs to meet the success that they desire. And so effective was he in so many categories of business, a lot of people wanted him to run for president in the 1970s and the 1980s.
Vostre brutte insignificanti
That's your
macchine.
big ugly factory making its ugly little cars.
E dite a quel porco del vostro padrone.
I believe he actually did phrase it that way.
I think it was the most intriguing tirade I have ever heard or ever will hear. That's not the exact quote, but...
Tell him he's not Henry Ford. He is Henry Ford II.
The scene underscores just how important racing was to Ferrari. This was his bread and butter. It was his identity. He was not going to forsake that to some corporate overlords in their faraway ugly factories.
Yeah, Ferrari existed to race. The fact that its cars also ended up on the road was just a product of being a race car company.
Although he did initially show some interest in being bought out.
Well, they
by
were
Ford.
completely broke.
Yes. But that one caveat is what broke the deal.
Go on. You said you're not Henry Ford. You're Henry Ford II.
You can see out of everything that cut him the deepest.
Game on.
He's immediately going for his checkbook.
It's all about ego, too.
Gonna bury that goddamn greasy wop 100 feet deep under the finish line at Le Mans. And I will be there to watch it.
One of the other dynamics to keep in mind, too, is that after this whole brouhaha, that Ferrari sold a majority of their stake to Fiat. Some have speculated the whole negotiating process with Ford was just done to better the price, to enrichen the deal with Fiat.
And it worked.
Whatever you do, do not let him take that car. That's Jeff Blitzer's car.
Bring Collins and Steve McQueen's.
Forgot about McQueen.
The reference to Steve McQueen here is a good one. And if you're into classic cars of the 1960s, the movie that you have to check out is Bullet, with one of the really iconic car chase scenes that goes through the meandering, steep streets of San Francisco, which purportedly Steven Spielberg is going to be remaking. So check out the original first.
1968 Mustang Fastback GT. The rest of the movie's terrible. The car chase is awesome.
What I'm saying is, you can't buy a win, Lee.
That meeting didn't go exactly that way. Apparently, Shelby kind of knew what Ford was going after with his close relationship with them and had been lobbying them for up to 2 years and said, give me $25,000 and I'll have you a win.
Shorten the wheelbase, somehow lose half a ton and lower the price. But even then, I'll still choose a Chevy Chevelle.
Oh. So as we can see here, the Mustang has not come to full fruition yet.
I'm assuming this is 1964. The Mustang was released halfway through the year as a 64.5. It ultimately changed the car industry completely. It made a whole new segment of cars that every other company struggled to catch up with.
And it had that sort of appeal that Ayakoko was speaking of earlier in the film.
And I will own one someday.
You mind if I take a shot at the landing? No, I mean it. I flew B-29s out of San Antonio in 44. I did.
Okay.
So the two main characters have a background with the Second World War, and Shelby here was mentioned as having been a crew member on a B-29. What's his background?
During the war, he was in the United States Army Air Corps. He started off as a second lieutenant. He never left the country. He was always a trainer, an instructor, because of his skill. He was apparently really good at passing those on. And throughout the war, I have a list here of all the different planes he became qualified to fly on.
Wow.
The B-18, the B-25, the B-26, the B-17, and the B-29.
Very multifaceted fellow.
So yes, this small turboprop that he flies them in on, he would have been able to handle it.
I would say so. And Ken Miles also has a World War II backstory, which we'll revisit at a later point in the film.
Yeah, I think they mention it more so later on.
Fresh off the plane from England. Now, she's still a little on the rare side of cooked.
That is the Ford GT40. Do you know why it was called the GT40?
Do tell.
It was 40 inches high. That's it.
It's a damn short car.
Yes.
I would not fit well.
No, you would not.
Well,
It's awful.
It's worse than awful.
Yeah, it doesn't track. You know, the third gear is too high. Torque is not reaching the road. Steering's loose because the front end gets light. And over 140 thinks it's
airplane.
This is so well written. There's so many good, snappy one-liners.
It really gets across that he brought in Ken Miles because he trusts his bluntness and his experience. By the way, speaking of the Ford GT40, I will not own one someday. I don't have the several $1 million lying around.
Bloody hell, what the hell is this?
Well, you tell me, because I don't know.
What? Slow down!
Yeah, there's no seatbelts yet.
I think Volvo might have put a few seatbelts in at this point.
This is exactly the time period when these conversations start to be had. There's all sorts of consumer protection protocols that are coming into place, and it led to some wild conversations and debates in American society. Conversations like about freedom, like I don't have to wear a seatbelt if I don't want to.
It's about drivers' rights.
Yeah.
Right around this exact time, 62, 63, 64, the Chevrolet Corvair ended up being the centerpiece of Ralph Nader's Unsafe at Any Speed, and that brought up exactly what you just said.
And the car company was like hiring spies to chase him and dig up dirt on him, and it led to congressional investigations.
That would make an excellent movie or miniseries.
Yes, that would. Unsafe at Any Speed. It's like the perfect title for a film.
I'm not losing my home.
It's 200 a day. Plus expenses.
One of my favorite characteristics of some 1960s family cars was the little basket behind the back seat that you could put your child in.
Yep.
Like the newborn.
I can feel it in the wheel.
Mr. Miles, if there's a problem, the computer will find it.
Oh, Charlie, get some Scotch tape and a ball of wool.
Right. Good. So now let's just get all of this junk out.
Although I believe Ken did object to some of the computer equipment, they simply ran the external aerodynamic strips along with the computer. They never actually ripped everything out.
It's more dramatic this way.
Perhaps you want to check with HQ before you test. What do you say? We should ask.
Right. 150 dead.
A beatnik. That man landed a busted tank on the beach at D-Day and drove it clean across Europe to Berlin.
I suppose that cue there is a good moment to discuss some of Miles' World War II experiences. He was in the Guards Armored Division, and his outfit landed in Normandy about a week after D-Day, and he, in fact, was in the thick of it. And that's where he was really able to cultivate a lot of his mechanical prowess. And it really, having worked in a tank, having worked as a mechanical engineer, it really whetted his appetite for this drive, literally, in the post-war years.
And in fact, the unit he was in prior to the Armor Brigade was specifically an engineering unit, and he excelled at it. He became the top soldier in his unit, and his engineering skills were noticed and put to use by putting him in that Armor Brigade.
I'm saying you gotta trust me on this one.
Carroll, with marketing concerns, that's just not possible. Put a Ford-type driver in a Ford car, Mr. Shelby.
And these corporate types, man. That's where we insert a line from Dazed and Confused.
Actually, there's a line of you saying that in the car. I'm going to cut to a clip right now of us driving around in a 1965 Buick LeSabre.
Let's do it.
Yeah! There's like empty beer bottles on the wall.
This Neo McCarthy bullshit. That's what you put in.
Yeah.
I'm wearing the derby cap backwards.
It is their opinion that you are not a good image, so you cannot drive their race car.
Was the calculation behind this rationale simplistic in real life? Did he not have the sort of appearance that the Ford Motor Company was looking for, or was it his personality as much as anything?
I think the whole thing's being dramatized a bit more. Like maybe somebody once said that he wasn't a good fit for the Ford Motor Company, and they kind of used that line to create a lot of the drama in this movie.
Too soon, surely too soon.
Here we see a Shelby Daytona coupe up there on the lift. That was Carroll's original idea for a Le Mans racer, and he had developed it for the 64-65 season, I believe. And then Ford came in and said, no, here, let's do this GT40 thing.
Just a nice little artistic observation with the airplane lights moving across the tarmac in the background. It casts a shadow of the cars up on the wall behind Christian Bale, and it gives the illusion that the cars are moving behind him. He's not there, but like it's in his mind that he is. It's a nice, subtle little bit of cinematography that we see in the background.
The director did have to pull off some amazing work in this movie.
And James Mangold's just a really good director. He did Walk the Line. He did 3:10 to Yuma.
Oh, I love that movie.
He's doing the new Indiana Jones movie. We'll see about that one.
See that little building down there? In World War II, 3 out of 5 U.S. bombers rolled off that line.
It's just a testament to the sort of thing that he's talking about in regard to the capacity for production. One of my favorite stories and favorite photos that I show in the classroom when I talk about the World War II years is a photo of the Willow Run bomber plant located right outside of Detroit. And you know, these planes, these B-24s, they had like 1.5 million parts, and they rolled one off the assembly line every 57 minutes in a building that stretched over 1 mile long. That's the sort of capacity and can-do attitude that Ford here is talking about.
Do you have any idea the kind of shit that I had to eat just to get 4 wheels on that grid? No, you don't, because you don't deal with any of that stuff. Now knock it off, Ken. We got work to do, and this car ain't gonna build itself.
It works for the narrative, but this altercation never took place.
It's such a great scene, though. And having the wife watch it off from the front porch in a very casual manner just makes it hysterical.
And my wife is sitting right over there, Tracy. She's pretty awesome. And I'm sure she's saying to herself, boys. Oh, yeah, look, see? That is exactly what you would do, wouldn't it?
Yeah. You still take those for your ticker?
Only because they're so delicious.
I mean, and what better metaphor do you need to say that Carroll Shelby has speed and performance in his bloodstream than literally having to swallow nitroglycerin daily?
You know what Miles said before he got in that car?
No.
Does it come in black?
So what do you think? Does it come in black?
I got it. Yeah.
Look out there. Out there is the perfect lap.
If you notice how many different angles and the lighting in this scene, the director wanted this magic hour shot here. They filmed this entire sequence in 20 minutes. Runway, that number 8 sticking out there, it was 2-piece design. Yes, it was a number 8 for the runway, but they actually doubled it as lighting for when they had the opposite camera angle. They had that all thought out ahead of time so they could get that shot done that fast.
It's like Mangold knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
You want some ice cream?
In addition to all that, the artistry of it, it's just like a great little sentimental scene here that is very effective for character development. The Miles' son, played by actor Noah Jupe, interestingly enough, he's in another really interesting period piece with Matt Damon that is set in the post-World War II era called Suburbicon, which is a kind of a murder mystery bit of intrigue. It didn't get good reviews. I kind of liked it, though. George Clooney directed it, no less.
Oh.
It's a very interesting film that puts these actors in a very different sort of situation. So check it out. It's a hidden film. It's not a well-known one.
Oh, shit!
So what did happen here? in this situation?
Brake fade. They mention a few times up to here that the heat in the brakes is a continuous problem. They can't sort it out just yet. The brake rotors and pads get too hot. The thin layer of air between them can't dissipate fast enough, and so they're not actually making contact to slow the vehicle down. And you saw how glowing red the brake rotors were, and he just lost all brakes.
It looked awesome, but it was not awesome.
Right,
yeah.
right.
See, he got stuck. He couldn't breathe. So as long as you get out of the car, you're okay.
A sadly prophetic conversation that we see playing out here.
This sequence is foreshadowing the real history.
It falls on me, Shelby, to inform you that I have been appointed overall executive director of the racing program.
He's closing the blinds like he's about to cover up a crime that he's about to commit or something.
Well, I assure you, Leo, it will not.
There's a big part of me that wishes that really happened.
Yeah, and I'll only get into this a little bit because Shelby never locked BB in a room like that to make this happen. But why would the deadbolt lock be on the outside of the office door?
Specifically for the purpose of making this scene, that's why.
The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready, Shelby. Hit it. Attaboy.
Of course, we have the iconic Henry Ford II Carroll Shelby scene from the trailer that everyone knows.
Oh, you and me and my brother saw this in theaters, and I was laughing hysterically at this scene, and it still holds up really well.
Yeah, the little nuanced acting by everyone in this movie is just perfect.
I think it's like the best scene in the movie, but I'm so sad it didn't happen in reality. I mean, that's not the job of the executive to go in this semi-perilous test run. Oh, it's hysterical, and then it gets really profound. I really like it.
And if he doesn't, Ford Motor Company gets full ownership of Shelby American. Lock, stock, and brand. Forever.
Bypassing the chain of command is not without risk, but sometimes it pays off.
Yes. The racing really was this brutal back then. It was not uncommon for races such as this in Le Mans for people to die in fiery explosions and the race just go on because that's what happened.
Are you not entertained?
Is right up our ass. If I can just get out of the pit ahead of him. She's running hard.
You'll also notice all the racing jackets they're wearing are the white with the blue racing stripes. That is the iconic Shelby color scheme. Here you see the GT40s racing, and the cars they built, obviously they're not going to use multi-million-dollar historical pieces such as real GT40s, so they built mock-ups of the originals. They were all fitted with LS-style Chevrolet engines, oddly enough, for filming purposes, and Fast and the Furious does the same thing. They just put that engine in every single car they make. But I had the opportunity, February of 2020, I took my son to the Philadelphia Auto Show, and I can show you right now, pictures of the actual camera rig and stunt car that was used in this movie. You can see it's an extended frame to get better shots, and it has the LS engine in there, and it was just a really awesome thing to see. I took a couple pictures of it. You gotta love that 7,000 plus Go Like Hell. He never held up a sign like that in real life, but Go Like Hell is the name of the book that all of this is based on.
Check it out. Something else that we saw here, we see all the high muckety mucks opening up their beer and stuff like that here by the pits. I believe that would automatically disqualify the team if people are drinking there in proximity to that.
I can picture that being a rule.
Yeah.
I don't know all of the standard rules from the mid-60s.
Nor do I. That's one I read about, though. that intrigued me. Turns out alcohol and operation of high-speed volatile equipment aren't always the good combinations.
I'll have to write that down somewhere.
Start at the start line.
Yeah, but you actually start here because you have to run to your car and I'm on.
True enough.
You might have caught there that he explained that you actually start back here because you have to run to your car, and that's known as a Le Mans start. The drivers are on the opposite side of the track and have to run to their car, get in, and start it.
Because driving 24 hours isn't enough.
Yeah.
You have to run to your car.
It's the sadistic person that added that little
Well,
bit.
it's the last chance you're going to have to stretch your legs for a while, so maybe it's an added perk.
Accelerate very hard up to Dunlop Bridge. Road banking away from you.
Wonderful little bit of exposition here to catch everyone up with the race that's about to happen.
It's a very good thematic device because he's, in essence, really explained it to the audience, not his son.
So they're actually in France now.
This shot of him walking through the cobblestone square in France, I think there's such a missed opportunity there where he could have had a flashback to the war, picturing one of his tanks parked in the square or something like that. It just would have been this nice subtle little nod acknowledging that he's back on his old
This was not
grounds.
his first trip to France.
Yeah.
And
Acknowledging that would have been really cool, I think.
The door actually did have trouble getting it closed on the first lap, but they didn't depict why, and I don't know why they missed the opportunity. He actually closed it on his helmet on the first try, and they had to figure that out when he got back to the pits the first time.
Just get out of the way. Go, 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 go!
Mr. Remington, the same guy that figured out the brake problem earlier in the movie, fixes it with a hammer.
And of course, what did he tell Ken's son? The key, if you're in a fix, is getting out.
Yeah.
So what does he do?
Jams the door shut.
Jams the door shut. Once again, I think a little bit more foreshadowing as to future things, perhaps.
Tea's ready, Ken. Oh, thank you, Chaz. Happy birthday, old
Cheers,
chap.
mate. Great run.
You see Ken and the other driver switching out. During Le Mans, no driver can be in the car for more than 14 hours. Let's be honest, that's a way too long to be going like that. Most drivers do swaps every 45 minutes to an hour.
Let's go. Swap that out.
Gotta love some knockoff wheels. That center lug. As was alluded to by the lightning there during the pit stop and driver change, right at nightfall during this Le Mans, there was a terrible downpour and it led to quite a few accidents and slowing of lap times.
I truly can't fathom going at these speeds in a rainstorm. The very prospect of it terrifies me.
These guys are huge risk takers and are way more brave than I think a lot of the world gives them credit for. And it's not like they're this brave to win a war or anything. It's to win a race, you know. So that truly speaks to how competitive they are in their soul. This really shows how driven Carroll Shelby was, along with his team, to win at all costs. You see him unleashing Ken Miles, stealing Ferrari's stopwatches later on. We see him drop a lug nut in Ferrari's pit to make them think they forgot to tighten one. I don't know if any of that actually happened here, but it really, really shows how driven he was as a racer.
And if they had done those things, they probably wouldn't have advertised it very openly.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something you do and never tell anyone.
Brakes! Nothing! Gone! All right, let's go, let's go, let's go!
Here we go again with the brake fade problem. They really drive that home, that problem that it keeps having. But then again, they have that secret fix up their sleeve.
Dammi l'olio! Qui,
I don't speak Italian, but he ain't happy.
The finest of rhetorical gamesmanship.
America. You could tell Matt Damon put on a little extra Texas accent for that line. His Texas, chicken farmer accent kind of goes and comes with this movie.
He's a man of many accents, though. He's pulled off many.
Yeah.
In his various films. To hear some more of the many accents of Matt Damon, check out some of his other films that we've analyzed on Real History, including Saving Private Ryan and The Last Duel. Go check out those videos.
If you'd like to see more of Christian Bale, perhaps we can cover Hostiles in the near future.
Or 310 to Yuma.
Yeah.
Or the New World.
Hold on. You mentioned 310 to Yuma earlier. We're going to do 310 to Yuma.
Same director.
I love that movie.
Okay. Like one of the best westerns ever, I'd say.
Di gomme nuove per sicurezza. Va bene. E comunque la frizione dobbiamo prepararla. Così. Ma, Calbulon, ragazzi!
There they go with the lug nut dropped in their pit. You know who doesn't have that problem? Ford. Because they have the knockoff center lug style wheels. It's a splined shaft and the wheel is splined the same. You put it on and you have one big lug nut with arms sticking out. You'll see them use it several times here. And you just tighten that down. And there we have it, Ford versus Ferrari. That just goes to show one of the most important things in racing isn't only power, it's braking. Braking harder, braking later allows you to gain the lead and cut corners and get ahead. You can really tell the American versus Italian car designs here. That scene that you obviously just saw, probably freeze frame it right here. With the rear end of that Ferrari that he's up against right now, a lot of Italian cars, Fiats, Alfa Romeos, Ferraris still have taillight designs and everything almost just like that today.
That's my girl, that's my girl!
In some ways, cinematically, I feel I get really big Ben-Hur vibes.
Yeah, okay.
It's like the modern equivalent of the chariot race where they're neck and neck, they're going around in a circle. And even though they're two entirely different realms and time periods, you see a lot of the same cinematic techniques in regard to close-ups and shots and angles, especially when they're turning the curves, that, an exciting chariot race is in many ways cinematically the same as an automobile race.
Nice. Except instead of spikes on the wheels, it's an engine losing oil pressure.
That would have been awesome if they had spikes. I think they should do that in the future. That'll really add an edge.
Is it in the rule book?
I mean, you can add parts, so.
I was thinking, Mr. Ford, wouldn't it be great if all three Fords lined up, crossed the finish line at the exact same time?
There's this undertone of he just hates Ken Miles to this idea. And you according to the movie, you think, oh, he's doing this because he hates Ken Miles, when in reality, he's a Ford man. He's just thinking Ford. You have to admit, Ford, 3 wide across the finish line. It's an iconic photo. It really did do what Henry Ford II set out to do.
That was to give a big middle finger to competitors.
3 big middle fingers.
Yes.
Yeah.
They want you to slow down.
Wouldn't that bother me again?
I think the whole idea of slowing down so all 3 cars go across the line at the same time underscores one of the historical contexts of this film, and that is the idea of towing the company line. No matter how daredevil these men are, no matter how driven they are, like you said, when it comes down to the end, and when you determine who's the one paying the bills, to an extent, they have to check their egos and their hubris even at the line.
Well, they know, because they know if they say no, we're going to win this race the way we need to. They're not going to be.
They weren't going to do any more races.
Yeah, they're not going to be there next year. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Ken Miles thought. He said, well, I'll get them their picture and I'll take it next year.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see how that turns out here soon.
Claiming the top 3 positions, led by Ken Miles and Ford number 1, who is...
Don't answer that. Get away from it.
They will toe the company line, but they will tell Ford how they think of, or what they feel about it, whether with words or by actions.
330.6. That's another record.
It's a perfect lap.
It's a beautiful thing that he gets that perfect lap in that he was discussing with his son, and his son got to watch it on television, considering what happens to him in the near future. Having the company not even want you to be their racer, and you were going to be the best of the best, and you have it ready to go, and they tell you to slow down.
And I think there's 2 revealing things here as he's having this moment of reflection in the seat. One, had he known how short his clock was, there would have been nothing to prevent him from just keep pressing forward, because he had nothing to lose really in the long run, because he didn't have much time left in his career anyway. The other thing, in regard to empathy, like you were saying earlier, is that he himself now has the same emotional moment in the front seat as Henry Ford II did. Because he realizes the potential, the capacity for this speed. And so even though they are 2 very different men in their outlooks on this race and what it means to them personally, they have this similar moment here where like they start crying about the speed of it all.
Except he's singing Happy.
Yes.
On the other hand, I think he also realizes how important it is. I mean, he was in this Ford Gets to Le Mans fight as much as anyone else. He realizes how important it is that this all Ford finish brings the image around.
Ford PR team was out in full glory on this day.
They were all like, well, I guess I have to quit now. That's the best I'll ever do. But as we have this 3-wide GT40 Le Mans finish, I'll put the actual photo up here. But it literally was PR gold. This accomplished what the beginning of the movie set out to do. And I mean, Ford is still around. It's probably the #1 car company in the world. They know what they're doing.
Where's the tie? Hey, where's the goddamn tie? What? Oh, you son of a bitch. You knew.
And so here's the coup de grace, so to speak, because in slowing down, Bruce McLaren caught up and went further and faster as a consequence. But no one knew it until it ended. To quote Miles' exact phrase that unfortunately was not used in the movie, tell us this very eloquent summation.
I'll start off with saying I think this line delivered by Christian Bale would have been absolutely fantastic. And I have no idea why they didn't put it in this movie. But I wrote it down here because it's a bit long, it's a bit hard to remember. His exact quote when he realized he lost because of this was, "I think I've been Third
place, Hutchison in Ford number 5.
I never should have asked you.
Yeah, right there is where he would have said that.
You still need a lighter chassis. I was thinking bonded aluminium It's a ground-up rebuild, but if it works.
There's a historical inaccuracy. It's actually aluminum.
I think they make that in Gloucester.
Gloucester?
Yeah.
Yeah. But as you see here, they clearly said, don't worry, we'll get him next year. And then we immediately lead into this scene of him testing Ford's newest J car.
There's a point, 7,000 RPM, where everything fades.
With the don't worry, we'll get him next year, the kind of ominous tone that's going on, even if you have no idea the history of this, you do start to get this feel of like, wait a minute, is something gonna happen here, or?
Get the van!
Who are you?
That was it. Ken Miles was testing the new J car that was going to go out and win the next year Le Mans. I believe he was 48. He tragically lost control of the car and it became an inferno.
And from what I understand, when something like that happens, Ford team went and dissected the wreck almost like TSA would go look at a airplane crash.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole vehicle was completely roached. I mean, it was just...
No two pieces were where they were supposed to be.
Right, right. And so it remains a mystery as to what happened exactly.
Here in the movie, they put brake failure. The pedal did nothing, and he was going over 200 miles an hour. But yeah, they don't know what caused it. And it's a tragedy. This World War II hero that came from nothing, had his shop closed up, and rose to the point of, I'll go ahead and say, winning Le Mans. Just, he was so passionate about what he did that he ended up, what's the phrase, too close to the sun?
Went out with his boots on.
Yeah, he sure did.
Words just are not useful.
And that's about how I feel sitting in front of the camera sometimes.
You've done fine. You are a far better public speaker than I am a mechanic.
But you did tap on the engine with that wrench once. Very poignant ending. That is, by the way, the proper way to drive an AC Cobra.
Nearly rear end a little family sedan backing out of the driveway.
Sideways. Well, there we have Ford versus Ferrari. Tragically, Ken Miles didn't get to finish or continue his career. However, Carroll Shelby went on to join the likes of Chrysler and back to Ford eventually. And now you see, even today, you can go out and buy a 2023 Shelby GT500. I'm not sure if they still put the Shelby name on there, but that is what that comes from. They are still partnered. Ford and Shelby are forever linked, and even today, people want to buy that namesake and know that if something is associated with a name of a man who passed 11 years ago, that it's going to be a fast track oriented quality product.
And all of this makes me think of a question that another Matt Damon movie that we've looked at ponders, and that's The Monuments Men.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, I forgot about that.
The question is it worth it?
It depends on what your motivation is. Ken Miles, the end result, he probably, if he was around to see a retrospective, would probably say yes, it was worth it.
The other thing too to think about in regard to Miles is that he went out at his highest point.
Yeah.
That is how people will always remember him, because he never declined or aged or retired or showed weakness.
Yep.
And there's a certain degree of immortality in the historical record, I think, that is associated with something.
They made a movie about him in 2019.
Yeah.
He went out Breaking Bad style. You were peak numbers. You could have made 3 more seasons and squeezed it out, but nah. You remember him at his best. He won Le Mans and was helping Ford out, and that was it. So,
well put.
With that said, I hope I didn't over-talk Jared too much during this episode, but I love cars, I love racing, and I love history, so I just couldn't help but being here.
I couldn't think of anybody that I'd rather do it with for this episode. So, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to check out all of our great resources linked in the caption below. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Share one of our videos on social media. Help us get word out about the channel. We always appreciate it. Andy, thank you so much for sharing your expertise on this side of the camera this time. We will see you next time on Real History. And until then,
stay curious.
Man, this Martha Washington, man, like, she was a rad lady. Because when George would go home after cruising through the plantation, she'd have a big pot just waiting for him when he'd get home.
Man, I'll tell you what, we could really use a chick like that around here right now.
Right on, man.
I can't laugh. I'm trying to keep a straight face, but we really could use a chick like that around here right now, man.